And hey, what's up, dudes? Welcome back. It's like becoming winter now, and I gotta turn on my lights. It's way too early, man. It's only 4:30. It's 4:30 right now. I can't. Anyways, hey, welcome back. We got a whole brand new set of videos coming out, brand new series. I'm talking all about cameras. This is about lenses, how cameras work, how sensors work, how everything just kind of functions. Man, I need a haircut. I can't wait for the end of this year. I'm gonna cut this off at the end of the year. Do you mark my words? Mark them. Now, when it comes to cameras and what they do and what they have, there's about 4 or 5 things I really want to cover here, and I've covered it in a longer video over on my channel somewhere else. I'll link it up here or something, whatever. You just take a look. So today's video is all about f-stop or aperture or t-stop. They're all basically the same thing. The f-stop is basically a measurement. It's like a calculated measurement, like a mathematical equation, whereas a t-stop is actual measurements of light transmitted through the lens. They're similar, but just disregard that, because all you need to know is what I'm about to teach you guys today. Now, maybe some of you actually didn't know this, but I actually work in the film industry, and I've worked on movies like Jurassic World and Godzilla and Red Tails and many other films, TV shows, music videos, and all these kinds of things, man. I've worked around a bunch of different kind of cameras: Arri, Red, Sony, Panavision, Panasonic, Panama. That's a place. But I've worked with a wide variety of lenses and all this kind of gear, so I feel like I know kind of what I'm talking about when it comes to cameras, and that's why I try to bring the best quality I can to streaming and YouTube and wherever I put myself. Now, f-stop is like t-stop and aperture, but it all that controls the amount of light that comes through the lens and hits your sensor or your film plane or whatever you're shooting on. On the inside of your lens, you got these little blades all in a little circular motion that are all kind of like hitting, like chopping into each other all in a row. And when you change the f-stop of a lens, you are essentially closing a gap to the amount of light going into your lens. Now, when you close that gap, your image gets darker, as well as you end up losing shallow depth of field and you gain a deeper depth of field. So while you change your f-stop to a higher number meaning the low, less bright image versus a wide aperture or a larger aperture, which is more light comes through the lens and hits your sensor. Now, when you are at that low number side, you are allowing for a much shallower depth of field, much like how this lens is right now, and much how you see me. This is an f1.4. Now, if we were to look at something like an f22 side by side, you'd actually see that everything's in focus when I say depth of field. So when I say depth of field, what I mean is how much focus you have in regards to where you are focusing to. So if I'm setting my lens to focus on this microphone and I set my f-stop to f22, that ends up changing how my focus looks, and most likely everything becomes in focus. Now, if I actually go the opposite way and I go down to an f1.4, which this lens can do, it's actually going to make that depth of field much more shallow, to where if I actually back up, I'm out of focus. And if I lean in, now I'm in focus again. Now, let me show you a quick example. So here you can see what an f22 looks like. Now, with that f22, you do need a lot more light. Generally, you are setting your lens to an f22 so that maybe you can compensate for the sunlight coming in. Maybe it's too harsh and you can't really control it, so you got to control the iris or the aperture of your lens to be able to control how much light is hitting the subject or whatever you're looking at, or else everything gets blown out and white and you can't see anything. Now, if we take a look at the opposite, being an f1.4, which is what this lens is at now, you can actually see that there's a lot more shallow depth of field to the image, where if I were to lean forward or lean back or walk around this chair, you would actually see that I'm going in and out of focus constantly. So that's where my job comes in. I'm a first assistant cameraman or a first AC or a focus puller. I make sure that the focus is always following the subject. Now, that's not really what we're talking about here, but just letting you know that once you change that f-stop or your aperture, your iris, down to a smaller number, you're getting a shallower depth of field, meaning you actually have to make sure that focus is always on. Now, autofocus is a good thing, but it's not always going to capture everything, and you might see a little wiggle with automatic focus and whatnot. But just want to let you guys know, the larger the number, more stuff is in focus and darker image. Then you have the lower number and shallower depth of field, and focus might go in and out, so you got to be a little bit careful. And the image is a little bit brighter depending on your environment. If you're in a dark closet, you might not be able to see anything at any of your f-stops. Just keep in mind, if you need more light through your lens, you might want to look at the f-stop and try to set that to the lowest number you can. Now, not all lenses can set to a 1.4 like this lens. I do have another camera that you actually have to set that to an f4 or maybe a 5.6, or maybe it has like a gradual change. If it's a zoom lens, most cheaper zoom lenses tend to, on the wider end, have a smaller aperture than when you actually zoom in. When you zoom in, that aperture is forced to change to a more closed aperture. So that's it. That's the whole video. Now you know a little bit more about f-stop. It's a very simple concept. Just go use it and try to get the lowest f-stop you can. Now, when it comes to webcams and stuff, they have to deal with like gain and stuff. It's all like digital numbers and they don't really have an f-stop. They more so have like an ISO change that happens. Now we'll get into that in another video, but just keep in mind that we're talking about mainly lenses on mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, cinema cameras, and all that kind of stuff, and interchangeable lenses. So, and some phones actually have an f-stop that actually changes. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Like and subscribe. More videos coming down the pipeline. And, you know, we got a couple more things to talk about. ISO, shutter speed, white balance, and some other stuff. So make sure to stay tuned. I'll catch you guys on the next one, which is coming up real soon. Bye.